Elena Rodriguez sat frozen in her chair at the upscale restaurant, watching what had to be the strangest sight of her life unfold before her eyes. The man she was supposed to meet for their first date, Jonathan Mitchell, had just walked through the door holding the hand of a small girl who couldn't be older than 8. The child was wearing noise-canceling headphones and clutching a stuffed dinosaur so tightly her knuckles were white. Her eyes darted around the busy restaurant like a trapped animal looking for escape routes. This wasn't what Elena had signed up for when her friend Rebecca had set them up. "He's successful, handsome, and needs someone special in his life," Rebecca had said. She'd conveniently left out the part about him having a daughter. Not that Elena minded children, but bringing a kid on a first date seemed beyond unusual. It seemed downright irresponsible. The little girl started rocking back and forth as the sounds of clinking silverware and chattering diners filled the space around them. Elena could see her lips moving, probably counting or reciting something to calm herself down. Jonathan seemed completely oblivious to his daughter's distress as he scanned the restaurant, looking for Elena's table. Elena's first instinct was to grab her purse and slip out the back exit. This was clearly a man with serious boundary issues, who brings their child to a romantic dinner. But as she watched the little girl's face scrunch up in obvious anxiety, something inside Elena's chest tightened. The child looked terrified, overwhelmed by the noise and the crowd of strangers around her. When Jonathan finally spotted Elena and started walking over with his daughter in tow, Elena noticed how the little girl tried to hide behind her father's leg. She was beautiful, with curly brown hair escaping from a neat ponytail and the same green eyes as her father. But those eyes held a kind of fear that made Elena's heart ache. "You must be Elena," Jonathan said when he reached her table, his smile confident and completely at odds with his daughter's obvious discomfort. "I'm Jonathan, and this is my daughter Sophia." Elena looked down at Sophia, who was now pressed so close to her father's side she seemed to be trying to disappear into his expensive suit jacket. The noise-canceling headphones had slipped slightly, and Elena could see how the child was fighting back tears. "Hi Sophia," Elena said softly, staying seated so she wouldn't seem too tall and intimidating. "I like your dinosaur. Is it a T-Rex?" Sophia's head popped up slightly and she looked at Elena with surprise. Most adults either ignored her completely or tried to force conversations she didn't want to have. But this woman had noticed her dinosaur and asked the right question. "It's actually a Parasaurolophus," Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible above the restaurant noise. "They're herbivores, not carnivores like T-Rex." "That's so cool," Elena replied, genuinely interested. "I bet you know lots of facts about dinosaurs." Jonathan stood there looking stunned. In the past 6 months, he'd brought Sophia on 12 different first dates, and not one woman had even acknowledged his daughter's presence, let alone engaged her in conversation. Most of them had made excuses and left within 10 minutes of seeing Sophia. A few had stayed but spent the entire evening shooting annoyed glances at the child and making pointed comments about appropriate timing and adult conversations. But Elena was different. She was still sitting there, still smiling at Sophia, still waiting patiently for the little girl to feel comfortable enough to respond. And Sophia, who usually shut down completely in new social situations, was actually talking to a stranger. "Would you like to sit down?" Elena asked, gesturing to the empty chairs at their table. "Maybe Sophia could tell me more about her dinosaur while we look at the menu." This was the moment Jonathan had been waiting for, the moment that would tell him everything he needed to know about Elena Rodriguez. Would she welcome his daughter with genuine warmth, or would she slowly reveal her true feelings as the evening progressed? He'd learned the hard way that people could fake kindness for a little while, but children, especially children like Sophia, had a way of bringing out people's real nature. As they settled into their seats, Elena noticed how Sophia arranged her napkin in a very specific way and lined up her silverware with mathematical precision. The little girl's movements were careful and deliberate, and Elena recognized the signs immediately. She'd worked with enough children in her job as a pediatric speech therapist to understand what she was seeing. Sophia was autistic. Suddenly, Jonathan's decision to bring his daughter made perfect sense. This wasn't about poor judgment or boundary issues. This was about a father who understood that his daughter's needs had to come first, even if it meant scaring away potential partners. This was about a man who refused to hide the most important part of his life. Elena felt a wave of respect wash over her, followed immediately by a determination to prove herself worthy of this test. Because that's what this was, she realized. This was Jonathan's way of finding out if she could truly accept both of them, not just the successful businessman but also the devoted father of a special needs child. "So Sophia," Elena said, opening her menu but keeping her attention on the little girl, "do you think they have any dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets here, Or should we ask them to make some special ones just for you? For the first time since walking into the restaurant, Sophia smiled. Elena watched as Sophia's smile transformed her entire face, making her look like the beautiful, intelligent child she was instead of the frightened little girl who'd walked in just minutes before. Jonathan was staring at both of them with an expression Elena couldn't quite read. Surprise mixed with something that looked almost like hope. They probably don't have dinosaur nuggets, Sophia said seriously, but maybe they could cut regular chicken into shapes. Did you know that birds are actually descendants of theropod dinosaurs? Really? Elena leaned forward, genuinely fascinated. So when I see a chicken, I'm basically looking at a tiny dinosaur? Sophia nodded enthusiastically, her earlier anxiety beginning to fade as she talked about her favorite subject. Chickens are related to velociraptors. They have similar bone structures in their legs and feet. Elena glanced at Jonathan, who was watching his daughter with amazement. She could tell this level of social interaction was rare for Sophia, especially with strangers. The little girl was usually so overwhelmed by new people and places that she barely spoke above a whisper. That's incredible, Elena said to Sophia. You must read a lot about dinosaurs. I have 47 books about them, Sophia replied, adjusting her headphones slightly. And I've watched every documentary on the Discovery Channel twice. Elena was about to respond when the waiter approached their table. She could see Sophia tense up immediately, her shoulders hunching as she prepared for the inevitable adult conversation that would exclude her completely. Good evening, the waiter said, addressing Jonathan and Elena while completely ignoring Sophia. Can I start you folks with some drinks? Actually, Elena said, turning to include Sophia in the conversation, I think our dinosaur expert here should order first. Sophia, what would you like to drink? Sophia looked surprised that an adult was asking for her input, especially in front of a waiter. She glanced at her father, who nodded encouragingly. Could I have chocolate milk, please? She asked quietly. Of course, the waiter replied, finally acknowledging her presence. And for the adults? Elena ordered a water with lemon and Jonathan asked for coffee. As the waiter walked away, Elena noticed how Sophia had relaxed again now that she'd been included instead of talked around. You know what I was thinking? Elena said to Sophia. If birds really are modern dinosaurs, then maybe we should order something that would make our ancient dinosaur friends proud. What do you think they would have eaten? Sophia's eyes lit up. Well, herbivores like Triceratops ate ferns and cycads, but those aren't really on restaurant menus. Maybe salad? And carnivores like Allosaurus ate other dinosaurs, but that's kind of like meat, right? Perfect reasoning, Elena said with a grin. So should we order like paleontologists having dinner in the Jurassic period? Jonathan watched this exchange with growing amazement. In all his attempts at dating over the past 2 years, not one woman had made such an effort to connect with Sophia. Most of them barely tolerated his daughter's presence, and several had actually suggested he get a babysitter next time, as if Sophia was an inconvenience to be managed rather than the most important person in his life. But Elena was different. She wasn't just being polite to Sophia, she was genuinely engaging with her, treating her like an intelligent person with interesting thoughts and opinions. And Sophia was responding in ways Jonathan hadn't seen since before her mother died 3 years ago. Dad, Sophia said, turning to Jonathan with more enthusiasm than she'd shown in months, Elena understands about dinosaurs. Can she help me with my paleontology project for school? Jonathan felt his heart skip. Sophia rarely asked for help from anyone outside their small circle of family and therapists. She certainly never invited strangers into her carefully ordered world. Well, Jonathan said carefully, that would be up to Elena. She might be very busy with her own work. Elena looked between father and daughter, sensing the weight of this moment. She could see how much this meant to both of them, and she found herself wanting to be part of whatever was happening here. I would love to help with your project, Elena said to Sophia. What's it about? I have to pick one dinosaur and write about what their daily life might have been like, Sophia explained. But I can't decide between Maiasaura because they were good mothers, or Therizinosaurus because they were huge but only ate plants. Both excellent choices, Elena said thoughtfully. Maybe we could research both of them and then you can decide which one interests you more? Sophia nodded eagerly, then looked at her father. Dad, could Elena come to the Natural History Museum with us this weekend? They have a new exhibit about nesting behaviors. Jonathan felt something shift inside his chest. For 2 years, Sophia had resisted every attempt he'd made to expand their social circle. She was polite to his friends and colleagues when necessary, but she never initiated contact or expressed interest in spending time with anyone new. Until now. If Elena would like to join us, Jonathan said, looking at her with new eyes, she's absolutely welcome. Elena felt a warm flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with romantic attraction to Jonathan and everything to do with the trust she saw in Sophia's eyes. This little girl was taking a huge risk by opening up to her, and Elena suddenly understood how precious that gift was. I can't think of anything I'd rather do this weekend, Elena said, and she meant it completely. As their food arrived and they continued talking, Elena realized that this strange evening had turned into something she'd never experienced before. She wasn't just getting to know Jonathan, she was getting to know his daughter, and in doing so she was seeing a side of parenthood that most people never witnessed. Jonathan wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a father who had restructured his entire life around his daughter's needs, who brought her on dates not because he was clueless about social norms, but because he refused to build a relationship with anyone who couldn't accept the most important person in his world. And Sophia wasn't just a child with special needs. She was a brilliant, fascinating little girl with an incredible mind and a heart that had been carefully protected but was apparently ready to trust again. Elena looked around the restaurant at all the couples having conventional first dates, talking about their careers and hobbies and travel plans. None of them were having conversations about dinosaur dietary habits or making plans to visit museums together. None of them were taking part in something as real and important as what was happening at this table. For the first time in her life, Elena realized she was exactly where she was supposed to be. As their main courses arrived, Elena noticed how Sophia carefully arranged her food so that nothing was touching anything else on her plate. She also saw how Jonathan subtly helped his daughter without making a big show of it, quietly moving the salt shaker to where Sophia could reach it easily and making sure her napkin was folded exactly the way she liked it. These small acts of understanding spoke volumes about the kind of father Jonathan was, and Elena found herself more impressed by his gentle attentiveness to his daughter than she would have been by any expensive gift or grand gesture. "Elena," Sophia said suddenly, "why aren't you asking Dad about his job? That's what all the other ladies talk about." The innocent question hung in the air like a revelation. Elena felt Jonathan tense beside her, and she realized that Sophia had just confirmed what she'd already suspected. This wasn't his first time bringing his daughter on a date. "Other ladies?" Elena asked gently, looking between father and daughter. Sophia nodded matter-of-factly. "Dad brings me when he meets new ladies for dinner. But they usually leave really fast or they act like I'm not here. One lady told the waiter to ask Dad if I could eat in the kitchen because I was disturbing other customers." Elena felt a flash of anger on behalf of this sweet child, but she kept her voice calm. Well, that lady was clearly missing out on getting to know someone very special. Jonathan cleared his throat, looking embarrassed. "I suppose I owe you an explanation." "You don't owe me anything," Elena said quietly, "but I'd like to understand." Jonathan took a deep breath, and Elena could see him struggling with how much to reveal. "After my wife died 3 years ago, I eventually decided I needed to try dating again. Not for me, but because I thought Sophia might benefit from having a mother figure in her life." Sophia continued eating her carefully arranged dinner, seemingly unbothered by being discussed. Elena got the impression that she'd heard this conversation before. "But I learned very quickly," Jonathan continued, "that most people aren't prepared for the reality of dating a single father, especially when that child has special needs. So I started being upfront about it from the beginning." "By bringing Sophia on first dates," Elena said, understanding dawning. "It seemed like the most honest approach," Jonathan explained. "If someone couldn't handle an evening with my daughter, they certainly couldn't handle being part of our lives long term. Sophia's needs come first always. That's not negotiable." Elena looked at this man with new respect. He could have easily gotten babysitters and hidden the more challenging aspects of his life until women were already emotionally invested. Instead, he was protecting both himself and his daughter from relationships that were doomed to fail. "How many women have you tested this way?" Elena asked. 12, Sophia answered before her father could speak. "Elena's number 13. And how many passed the test?" Sophia looked up from her meticulously eaten dinner. "You're the first one who talked to me like I'm a real person instead of a problem Dad has." The simple honesty of this statement hit Elena like a physical blow. She couldn't imagine treating any child, let alone this remarkable little girl, as an inconvenience or obstacle. "That's because you are a real person," Elena said to Sophia. "You're probably the most interesting person I've met in a long time." Sophia smiled shyly. "Really? Really? I work with kids every day and I've never met anyone who knows as much about dinosaurs as you do. That's pretty amazing." Jonathan watched this exchange with something approaching wonder. In all his careful planning and testing, He'd never imagined finding someone who would connect with Sophia so naturally. Elena wasn't trying to win points with him by being nice to his daughter. She genuinely enjoyed Sophia's company, and that made all the difference. "Can I ask you something?" Elena said to Jonathan. "What happened with Sophia's mother?" Jonathan's expression grew sad, and Sophia stopped eating to listen. "Cancer," he said simply. "It was very aggressive. Sophia was only 5 when we lost her. Mom used to read me books about dinosaurs," Sophia added quietly. "That's how I got interested in them. She said they were like dragons but real." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. This little girl had lost her mother at such a young age, and now she was watching her father struggle to find someone who could accept them both. No wonder she was so guarded with new people. "Your mom sounds like she was very smart," Elena said to Sophia. "And I bet she'd be proud of how much you've learned about dinosaurs." Sophia nodded solemnly. "Dad says she's watching from heaven and that she wants us to be happy." "I think she's right," Elena said, glancing at Jonathan. "And I think she'd want your dad to find someone who loves both of you exactly as you are." The weight of that statement settled over their table. Elena realized she'd just essentially admitted that she was falling for both of them, the devoted father and his remarkable daughter. It was too soon to use the word love, but she could feel something growing inside her chest that felt suspiciously like the beginning of that emotion. "So," Elena said, trying to lighten the mood, "tell me more about this museum visit. What exactly is this new exhibit about?" Sophia's face brightened immediately. "It's about how different dinosaurs built their nests and took care of their babies. Some of them made really elaborate nests with specific temperatures for their eggs, and some of them brought food to their babies for months after they hatched. Kind of like how modern parents take care of their children," Elena observed. "Exactly," Sophia said excitedly. "That's what I want to write about for my project. How being a good parent is something that's been important for millions of years." Elena looked at Jonathan, who was watching his daughter with obvious pride and love. She could see where Sophia had gotten her intelligence and her capacity for deep thinking. As the evening continued, Elena found herself completely charmed by this unusual family. Jonathan was clearly a devoted father who had made countless sacrifices to give his daughter the best life possible. And Sophia was a brilliant child who just needed patient people willing to understand her unique way of seeing the world. When the waiter brought the check, Elena reached for her purse, but Jonathan waved her away. "This was my test," he said with a smile. "The least I can do is pay for dinner." "Did I pass?" Elena asked, only half joking. Sophia looked up from the origami crane she'd been making out of her napkin. "You're the only one who asked about my dinosaur instead of pretending I wasn't here. And you want to help with my project. And you didn't get mad when I told you about the other ladies. So that's a yes?" Elena asked. "That's definitely a yes," Jonathan said, his voice warm with gratitude and something that might have been the beginning of genuine affection. As they prepared to leave the restaurant, Elena realized that this strange evening had changed something fundamental inside her. She'd started the night expecting a conventional first date with a successful businessman. Instead, she'd found herself becoming part of a family story that was still being written. And for the first time in her life, she wanted to help write the ending. The following Saturday morning found Elena standing outside the Natural History Museum, clutching a bag containing 3 dinosaur-themed coloring books and a set of colored pencils she'd picked up during the week. She felt nervous in a way she hadn't experienced since her first day at her job, the kind of nervousness that came from wanting desperately to do something right. When she spotted Jonathan and Sophia approaching across the museum plaza, she felt her anxiety ease slightly. Sophia was wearing a bright purple dinosaur t-shirt and carrying a small backpack that was covered in fossil prints. Her face lit up when she saw Elena waiting for them. "Elena," Sophia called out, actually running the last few steps to reach her. "Dad said you might not come because it's early on a Saturday." "I wouldn't miss this for anything," Elena said, kneeling down to Sophia's level. "I brought you something." She handed Sophia the bag, watching as the little girl's eyes widened with surprise and delight. "Coloring books?" Sophia asked, pulling them out one by one. "Look, Dad, this one has Parasaurolophus just like my stuffed animal." Jonathan watched his daughter's excitement with amazement. Sophia rarely showed this level of enthusiasm about anything involving other people. She was usually polite but reserved, especially in public settings that could be overwhelming for her. "That was very thoughtful," Jonathan said to Elena, and she could hear genuine gratitude in his voice. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to," Elena replied simply. "I saw them and thought Sophia might like them." As they entered the museum, Elena noticed how Jonathan positioned himself slightly behind Sophia, ready to provide support if she became overwhelmed by the crowds. But Sophia seemed more confident today, perhaps because she had something specific to focus on and someone new who understood her interests. The new exhibit was everything Sophia had promised it would be. Detailed dioramas showed different dinosaur species caring for their young, with interactive displays explaining various nesting behaviors and parental strategies. "Look at this!" Sophia exclaimed at the first display, reading the information panel aloud. Maiasaura mothers brought food to their babies in the nest for several months after they hatched. The babies couldn't walk yet, so the parents had to take care of everything. Elena found herself genuinely fascinated by the information, but she was even more captivated by watching Sophia's mind work. The little girl absorbed facts like a sponge and made connections between different pieces of information with remarkable speed. "That's like human babies," Elena observed. "They need their parents to take care of them for a long time before they can be independent." "Exactly," Sophia said, bouncing slightly on her toes. "That's what I want to write about, how good parenting has been important for millions of years, way before humans even existed." Jonathan felt a familiar surge of pride in his daughter's intelligence, but this time it was mixed with something new. The pleasure of sharing that pride with someone else who truly appreciated Sophia's remarkable mind. As they moved through the exhibit, Elena found herself naturally falling into step with Sophia's rhythm. When the little girl needed time to read every single information panel, Elena waited patiently. When Sophia got excited about a particular display and wanted to explain everything she was learning, Elena listened with genuine interest. At one point, when Sophia was completely absorbed in a hands-on display about egg incubation, Jonathan pulled Elena aside. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I can't remember the last time I saw her this relaxed around someone new." "She's an amazing kid," Elena replied, watching Sophia carefully measure temperature readings at the interactive station. "You've done an incredible job raising her." Jonathan's expression grew serious. "It hasn't been easy. After her mother died, Sophia went through a really difficult period. She stopped talking for almost 6 months, stopped engaging with the world around her. I was terrified I was going to lose her too." Elena felt her heart ache for both of them. "But she came back. Slowly. With a lot of therapy and patience and time. But she's never been as open with strangers as she is with you. Usually it takes months before she'll have a real conversation with someone new." Elena looked back at Sophia, who was now showing another child at the exhibit how to properly measure the temperature sensor. The little girl was actually teaching someone else, sharing her knowledge with confidence and enthusiasm. "Maybe she's ready to start trusting people again," Elena suggested. "Maybe she was just waiting for the right person to come along." Jonathan studied Elena's face, looking for any sign that she didn't fully understand what she was getting into. Dating him meant accepting Sophia completely, with all her needs and challenges and beautiful complexity. It meant understanding that his daughter would always come first, that plans would sometimes have to change because of Sophia's requirements, that patience and flexibility weren't just nice qualities but absolute necessities. But as he watched Elena explain something about fossil formation to Sophia with genuine enthusiasm, he realized that she already understood all of that. She wasn't tolerating his daughter or trying to win points with him. She was building a real relationship with Sophia based on mutual respect and shared interests. "Elena," Sophia called out, "come look at this display about Orodromius nests. They made their nests in specific patterns so they could watch for predators while taking care of their babies." Elena immediately went over to see what Sophia was excited about, and Jonathan followed, marveling at how natural this felt. For the first time in 3 years, he was watching someone else care about his daughter's happiness as much as he did. They spent almost 3 hours in the museum, with Sophia leading them from display to display, asking questions and making observations that impressed even the museum staff. When they finally decided to take a break in the museum cafe, Sophia was practically glowing with excitement. "This is the best museum day ever," she announced as they sat down with their snacks. "Elena, did you know that some dinosaur parents actually sat on their nests like birds do today?" "I didn't know that," Elena said, opening one of the coloring books she'd brought. "Maybe you could draw me a picture of what that looked like?" Sophia immediately grabbed the colored pencils and began sketching with intense concentration. As she worked, she continued chattering about everything they'd seen, and Elena found herself completely enchanted by the little girl's enthusiasm and intelligence. Jonathan watched them together and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: hope. Hope that maybe Sophia wouldn't have to grow up with just him. Hope that maybe they could become a real family again. Hope that maybe he'd found someone who could love his daughter as much as he did. When Sophia finished her drawing, a detailed picture of a feathered dinosaur sitting protectively on a nest full of eggs. She handed it to Elena with pride. "This is for you," she said, "to remember our museum day." Elena looked at the drawing, with its careful attention to scientific detail and obvious love, and felt tears prick her eyes. "This is beautiful, Sophia. I'm going to frame it and put it in my apartment." "Really?" Sophia asked, beaming. "Really? It's the most beautiful dinosaur drawing I've ever seen." As they prepared to leave the museum, Jonathan realized that something fundamental had shifted in their little family. Sophia had let someone new into her carefully guarded world, and Elena had stepped into that world with grace and genuine affection. For the first time since his wife died, Jonathan allowed himself to believe that their story might have a happy ending after all. Elena woke up Sunday morning with Sophia's dinosaur drawing spread out on her coffee table and a smile she couldn't quite shake. She'd already called 3 different frame shops to find one that would be open on Sunday, determined to keep her promise to the little girl who had captured her heart so completely. As she made coffee, Elena found herself replaying every moment of the previous day. The way Sophia's face had lit up at each new discovery, how patiently Jonathan had answered his daughter's endless questions, the comfortable rhythm they'd all fallen into as they explored the museum together. She'd dated plenty of men over the years, but she'd never experienced anything like yesterday. The easy warmth of being welcomed into a family, the joy of watching a brilliant child discover new things, the quiet satisfaction of seeing Jonathan's obvious pride in his daughter. It had felt more real and meaningful than any romantic dinner or weekend getaway she'd ever experienced. Elena's phone buzzed with a text message, and her heart jumped when she saw Jonathan's name on the screen. "Sophia wants to know if you really meant it about framing her drawing. She's been asking about it since we got home yesterday." Elena smiled as she typed back, "Already calling frame shops. Tell her it's going to have a place of honor in my living room." Her phone rang almost immediately. "Elena?" It was Sophia's voice, bright with excitement. "Dad let me call you? Did you really like my drawing?" "I loved it," Elena said, settling into her couch with her coffee. "I'm going to get it professionally framed today so it'll last forever." "That's so cool. Elena, do you want to come have breakfast with us? Dad's making pancakes and I can show you my dinosaur book collection." Elena felt her heart warm at the invitation. "Are you sure your dad won't mind having an unexpected guest for breakfast?" "He already said yes," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "He made extra batter just in case you wanted to come." Elena could hear Jonathan's voice in the background, and Sophia giggled. "Dad says to tell you he makes really good pancakes, but I think he's just showing off." "Well," Elena said, already reaching for her keys, "I guess I'll have to come over and judge for myself." An hour later, Elena found herself sitting in Jonathan's spacious kitchen, watching him flip pancakes while Sophia organized her extensive dinosaur book collection on the kitchen table. The scene was so domestic and comfortable that Elena had to remind herself she'd only known these 2 people for a week. "This one is my favorite," Sophia said, showing Elena a thick book about prehistoric marine reptiles. "It has pictures of plesiosaurs and mosasaurs. They lived in the ocean when dinosaurs lived on land." "Technically," Jonathan said from the stove, "those weren't actually dinosaurs. They were marine reptiles that lived during the same time period." Sophia rolled her eyes good-naturedly. "Dad always corrects me about that. But they're still really cool, right, Elena?" Elena flipped through the book, genuinely impressed by the detailed illustrations and scientific information. "These are incredible. Look at the size of this mosasaur compared to the modern whale." "I know," Sophia said excitedly. "They were like sea monsters but real ones. Way cooler than any movie monster." Jonathan brought over a plate of perfectly golden pancakes, and Elena noticed how he automatically cut Sophia's into precise squares without being asked. These small acts of understanding and accommodation spoke volumes about the kind of father he was. "So," Jonathan said as they ate, "Sophia has a request and I told her she needed to ask you herself." Sophia looked suddenly shy. "Well, I was wondering. My school is having a science fair next month, and I want to do my project about dinosaur parenting behaviors. But I need help with the presentation part because I get nervous talking in front of people." Elena could see how much courage it had taken for Sophia to ask this question. "What kind of help do you need? Maybe you could help me practice? And maybe help me figure out how to make it interesting for people who don't know much about dinosaurs." Elena felt honored that Sophia trusted her enough to ask for help with something so important. "I would love to help with your science fair project. We could work on it together." Sophia's entire face lit up. "Really? You don't think it's boring? Are you kidding?" A project about prehistoric parenting from someone who knows as much as you do? That sounds like the most interesting science fair project ever. Jonathan watched this exchange with a mixture of amazement and growing affection for Elena. In the space of a week, she'd gone from being a stranger to being someone his daughter actively sought out for support and guidance. Sophia, who usually struggled with new people and situations, was completely comfortable with Elena. "There's something else," Sophia said, looking between Elena and her father. "The science fair is on a Friday evening, and afterwards there's a family dinner. Would you want to come? As our family?" The question hung in the air, loaded with meaning that went far beyond a simple dinner invitation. Sophia was asking Elena to be part of their family unit, at least for one important evening. She was asking Elena to stand with them as they celebrated her achievement. Elena looked at Jonathan, who nodded encouragingly. "Only if you want to," he said quietly. "No pressure." But Elena was already feeling the answer in her heart, the same certainty she'd felt when she first decided to stay at that restaurant instead of running away from the unexpected complication of Sophia's presence. "I can't think of anything that would make me happier," Elena said to Sophia. "I would be honored to be part of your family for the science fair." Sophia actually clapped her hands together, something Elena had never seen her do before. "This is going to be the best science fair ever." As they finished breakfast and Elena helped clean up, she couldn't help but notice how naturally she fit into their morning routine. Jonathan handed her dishes to dry without asking, Sophia showed her where everything went in the cabinets, and somehow it all felt like something they'd been doing for years instead of hours. When Elena finally left to go frame Sophia's drawing, she carried with her the warm feeling of belonging somewhere special. She'd found something she hadn't even known she was looking for, a family that needed her as much as she was beginning to need them. Later that evening, as Elena hung the framed drawing in her living room, she took a photo and sent it to Sophia. Her phone immediately rang. "Elena, it looks so professional. Dad, come look at Elena's picture." Elena could hear Jonathan's voice in the background, warm with approval. "Tell Elena that Sophia hasn't stopped talking about her all day." "I heard that," Elena laughed. "And tell Sophia I haven't stopped thinking about you two either." It was true. In the space of one weekend, Elena's entire perspective on what she wanted from life had shifted. She'd thought she was looking for romance, but what she'd found was something much more profound. The possibility of becoming part of a real family, built on mutual respect, shared interests, and genuine love. As she got ready for bed that night, Elena looked at Sophia's drawing one more time and made a silent promise to the little girl who had trusted her so quickly and completely. Whatever happened between her and Jonathan, she would always be there for Sophia. Some connections were too precious to ever let go. 3 weeks later, Elena had become a regular part of Jonathan and Sophia's weekly routine. Tuesday evenings were for science fair preparation at Jonathan's house, where Elena helped Sophia practice her presentation while Jonathan made dinner. Thursdays were Elena's choice, and she'd started a tradition of taking them to different educational activities around the city. The planetarium one week, the aquarium the next. But it was the quiet Sunday mornings that Elena treasured most. The three of them had fallen into an easy rhythm of pancakes, dinosaur documentaries, and what Sophia called family time. On the couch. Elena had her own spot now, on the left side of Jonathan's large sectional, with Sophia curled up between them during their weekly movie marathons. On this particular Sunday, Elena arrived to find Sophia unusually quiet and Jonathan looking concerned. "What's wrong?" Elena asked, immediately noticing the tension in the house. "Sophia had a rough week at school," Jonathan explained quietly while his daughter was in the bathroom. "Some kids were teasing her about her dinosaur obsession, calling it baby stuff." Elena felt a familiar surge of protective anger on Sophia's behalf. She'd worked with enough children to know how cruel kids could be to anyone who was different, and Sophia's passionate interests made her an easy target for bullies. When Sophia emerged from the bathroom, Elena could see the little girl had been crying. Her usual bright enthusiasm was dimmed, replaced by a sadness that broke Elena's heart. "Hey there, dinosaur expert," Elena said gently, sitting down on the couch and patting the spot next to her. "Your dad told me you had a tough week." Sophia climbed up next to Elena, leaning against her side in a way that spoke of complete trust. "Some kids at school said dinosaurs are stupid and only little kids care about them. They said I'm weird for knowing so much about extinct animals." Elena felt her protective instincts surge, but she kept her voice calm and supportive. "You know what I think? I think those kids are probably jealous because you know things they don't understand. It takes a really smart person to learn as much as you have about paleontology. But what if they're right? Sophia asked quietly. What if I am weird? Elena looked at this brilliant, sensitive child and felt her heart ache. Sophia, can I tell you something important? Sophia nodded, looking up at Elena with those serious green eyes. Some of the most amazing people in the world are what other people call weird. Albert Einstein was weird. Marie Curie was weird. Every single paleontologist who discovered the dinosaurs you love so much was probably called weird by someone. Sophia's expression brightened slightly. Really? Really? Being passionate about learning, being curious about the world, caring deeply about things that matter to you? Those aren't weird things. Those are wonderful things. And anyone who makes fun of you for being smart and interested in science is just showing that they don't understand how special you are. Jonathan watched this interaction from the kitchen, feeling his admiration for Elena grow even deeper. She had exactly the right words to help Sophia understand that her differences were strengths, not weaknesses. Besides, Elena continued, I happen to think dinosaur experts are the coolest people in the world. Do you know how many adults I've met who wish they knew as much about anything as you know about paleontology? How many? Sophia asked, genuinely curious. Pretty much all of them, Elena said with a grin. Including your dad and me. Sophia actually giggled at that, the first genuine smile Elena had seen from her since arriving. Elena, Sophia said thoughtfully, do you think other kids would think dinosaurs were cool if they understood them better? I think most kids would find dinosaurs fascinating if someone as smart as you explained them properly, Elena replied. Why do you ask? Sophia was quiet for a moment, and Elena could practically see the wheels turning in her head. What if instead of just doing my science fair project for my class, I did a presentation for the whole school? Like an assembly where I could teach everyone about dinosaurs. Jonathan came over from the kitchen, intrigued by his daughter's sudden burst of confidence. That's a really interesting idea, sweetheart. But that would mean presenting to hundreds of kids, not just your classmates. I know, Sophia said, sitting up straighter. But Elena's been helping me practice and I think I could do it. Especially if you and Elena were there to help me. Elena felt a surge of pride in Sophia's courage. A few weeks ago, the little girl could barely order for herself in a restaurant. Now she was proposing to give a presentation to her entire school. I think that's a brilliant idea, Elena said. And I think you're brave enough and smart enough to pull it off. Really? Sophia asked, looking between Elena and her father. Really? Jonathan confirmed. If that's what you want to do, we'll figure out how to make it happen. Sophia threw her arms around Elena in an impulsive hug. Thank you for making me feel brave again. Elena hugged her back, feeling tears prick her eyes. You were always brave, sweetheart. You just needed to remember it. That afternoon, as they worked on expanding Sophia's science fair project into a school-wide presentation, Elena realized something important was happening. Sophia wasn't just gaining confidence in her academic abilities, she was learning to trust her own voice and believe in her own worth. Elena, Sophia said as they worked on visual aids, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think you might want to be part of our family forever? Not just for science fairs and museum trips, but really forever. The question caught Elena off guard with its directness and innocence. She looked over at Jonathan, who had stopped what he was doing to listen to her answer. I can't imagine wanting to be anywhere else, Elena said honestly. You and your dad have become the most important people in my world. Sophia smiled with satisfaction. Good. Because I already think of you as my family. I just wanted to make sure you felt the same way. Elena looked at this remarkable child who had opened her heart so completely, and at Jonathan who had been watching their entire interaction with obvious love and approval, and realized that Sophia was absolutely right. They were already a family. They just hadn't made it official yet. But as Elena helped Sophia practice her presentation and watched Jonathan beam with pride at his daughter's growing confidence, she had a feeling that making it official was just a matter of time. The weeks leading up to Sophia's school presentation flew by in a whirlwind of preparation, practice sessions, and growing closeness between the three of them. Elena had essentially moved into their evening routine, arriving after work most days to help with homework, staying for dinner, and often not leaving until after Sophia's bedtime. Jonathan's house had become as familiar to Elena as her own apartment. She knew which cabinet held Sophia's favorite cups, where Jonathan kept the good coffee, and exactly how to arrange Sophia's stuffed animal so the little girl could fall asleep easily. These small intimacies felt more significant than any grand romantic gesture ever could. On the Tuesday before Sophia's big presentation, Elena arrived to find both father and daughter looking unusually serious. What's going on? Elena asked, immediately sensing tension. The principal called, Jonathan explained. Apparently, some parents complained about Sophia doing a presentation to the whole school. They think it's giving her special treatment because of her autism. Elena felt her protective instincts flare. That's ridiculous. Sophia earned this opportunity by having the best science project in her grade. I know, Jonathan said tiredly. But the principal is suggesting we scale it back to just her classroom instead of the full assembly. Elena looked at Sophia, who was sitting quietly at the kitchen table with her presentation notes spread out in front of her. The little girl had worked so hard to overcome her fears and build the confidence to speak in front of a large group. To have that opportunity taken away because of other people's prejudices seemed incredibly unfair. What do you want to do, Sophia? Elena asked, sitting down next to her. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, clearly struggling with disappointment and frustration. I want to do the big presentation, she said finally. I've been practicing so hard and I think the kids would really like learning about dinosaurs. But what if the parents are right? What if I'm just getting special treatment because I'm different? Elena felt her heart break a little at the doubt in Sophia's voice. Sweetheart, you're not getting special treatment. You're getting the recognition you've earned through hard work and exceptional knowledge. There's a big difference. But what if I mess up in front of everyone? Sophia asked quietly. What if I get overwhelmed and can't finish? Jonathan sat down across from them, his expression gentle but serious. Sophia, you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. If you want to stick with the classroom presentation, that's perfectly fine. But if you want to do the assembly, Elena added, your dad and I will be right there supporting you. And if you need to take a break or if anything becomes too overwhelming, we'll figure it out together. Sophia looked between the two adults who had become her biggest champions, and Elena could see her weighing her options carefully. Can I think about it overnight? Sophia asked. Of course, Jonathan said. This is your decision and we'll support whatever you choose. That evening, after Sophia had gone to bed, Elena and Jonathan sat on his back porch with cups of coffee, talking quietly about the situation. I hate that she has to deal with this kind of prejudice, Elena said. She's just a kid who wants to share something she loves. I know, Jonathan replied. But this is the reality of raising a child with special needs. People are always going to question whether she deserves the same opportunities as other kids. Elena was quiet for a moment, thinking about everything Sophia had overcome in just the few months Elena had known her. You know what I realized today? What's that? I love her, Elena said simply. Not because she's your daughter, not because I want to impress you, but because she's this incredible little person who has completely captured my heart. Jonathan looked at Elena with an expression she couldn't quite read. That means everything to me, he said quietly. More than you know. And I love you too, Elena continued, the words coming easier than she'd expected. I love watching you with her, seeing how patient and understanding you are. I love the family we've become together. Jonathan reached over and took her hand. I've been wanting to tell you the same thing. I love how naturally you fit into our lives, how Sophia lights up when you're around. I love that you see her for who she really is, not just as a child with special needs. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding hands and processing the significance of what they just shared. So what happens now? Elena asked eventually. Now we help Sophia make her decision, and we support her no matter what she chooses, Jonathan said. And maybe we start talking about what our future looks like together. Elena smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the coffee. I'd like that. The next morning, Sophia appeared at breakfast with her presentation notes and a determined expression. I decided, she announced. I want to do the assembly. Even if some parents don't think I should. Are you sure? Jonathan asked. I'm sure. Elena helped me realize that being different isn't bad, it's just different. And maybe if I show the other kids how cool dinosaurs are, they'll understand that different interests can be really interesting. Elena felt a surge of pride in Sophia's courage and wisdom. We'll be right there with you, she promised. I know, Sophia said with a smile. That's why I'm not scared anymore. As they spent the next few days doing final preparations for the presentation, Elena marveled at the transformation she'd witnessed in Sophia. The shy, anxious child she'd met a few months ago had grown into a confident young person who was ready to share her passion with the world. But the most amazing transformation had been in herself. Elena had started this journey looking for a romantic relationship, but she'd found something much more valuable, a family where she truly belonged, where her love was returned unconditionally, and where every day brought new opportunities to support and care for the people who mattered most. On the night before Sophia's presentation, as Elena tucked the little girl into bed, Sophia looked up at her with those serious green eyes. "Elena, even if tomorrow doesn't go perfectly, I want you to know that you've made everything better. Before you came, it was just me and Dad, and that was good. But now it feels like we're a real family." Elena kissed Sophia's forehead, feeling tears of happiness prick her eyes. "We are a real family, sweetheart. And tomorrow is going to be amazing because you're amazing." As Elena turned off the lights and headed downstairs to where Jonathan was waiting, she reflected on how much her life had changed since that strange first date at the restaurant. She'd thought she was looking for love, but what she'd found was so much more profound. She'd found her place in the world, her purpose, her home. Tomorrow, Sophia would share her passion with her entire school. But tonight, Elena was content to simply be part of this family that had chosen her as much as she had chosen them. The morning of Sophia's presentation dawned bright and clear, and Elena arrived at Jonathan's house to find both father and daughter calm and prepared. Sophia was wearing her favorite dinosaur dress and had her presentation materials organized with typical precision. "Are you ready for this?" Elena asked, giving Sophia a hug. "I think so," Sophia replied, adjusting her small shoulder bag. "I practiced in front of the mirror this morning and I remembered everything." The school assembly was scheduled for 10 a.m., giving Sophia's presentation the honor of being the featured event for the entire elementary school. As they drove to the school together, Elena noticed how Jonathan kept glancing at his daughter in the rearview mirror, clearly nervous on her behalf. "Dad," Sophia said from the back seat, "you look more worried than I do." Jonathan laughed. "You're right. I'm probably more nervous than you are." "That's because you love me," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "But Elena taught me that being nervous just means something is important to you. And this is important to me, so it's okay to be a little nervous." Elena turned to smile at Sophia, amazed as always by the little girl's wisdom and emotional intelligence. When they arrived at the school, they were greeted by Sophia's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, and the principal, Mr. Rodriguez. Elena was pleased to see that both adults seemed genuinely excited about Sophia's presentation rather than reluctant. "Sophia, we're so proud of you for taking on this challenge," Mrs. Patterson said warmly. "The other teachers have been talking about your presentation all week." The school auditorium was filled with students from kindergarten through 5th grade, along with several teachers and a handful of parents who had come to support Sophia. Elena spotted a few faces she recognized as parents who had complained, but she was pleased to see that they seemed to be in the minority. As Sophia took the stage with her microphone and visual aids, Elena felt her heart swell with pride and love. This brave little girl was about to share her passion with hundreds of her peers, and she was doing it with confidence and grace. "Good morning, everyone," Sophia began, her voice clear and strong. "My name is Sophia Mitchell, and I want to tell you about the most amazing creatures that ever lived on Earth, dinosaurs." For the next 20 minutes, Sophia captivated her audience with facts about dinosaur parenting behaviors, complete with visual aids, interactive questions, and even a few jokes that had the younger kids giggling. Elena watched the faces in the audience transform from polite attention to genuine fascination as Sophia shared her knowledge with infectious enthusiasm. "So the next time someone tells you that learning about extinct animals is pointless," Sophia concluded, "you can tell them that dinosaurs taught us everything we know about being good parents, protecting our families, and taking care of each other. And those are lessons that are just as important today as they were 65 million years ago." The auditorium erupted in applause, and Elena felt tears of pride streaming down her face. Sophia had not only delivered her presentation flawlessly, she had inspired an entire school to see learning and curiosity as exciting adventures rather than boring obligations. As students filed out of the auditorium, many of them stopped to ask Sophia questions about dinosaurs or to tell her how cool her presentation was. Elena noticed several teachers making notes, clearly planning to incorporate some of Sophia's techniques into their own lessons. "That was incredible," Jonathan said to his daughter as they gathered up her materials. "I am so proud of you." "Me too," Elena added, giving Sophia another hug. "You were absolutely amazing up there." Sophia beamed with satisfaction. "It was fun. I want to do more presentations like that." As they drove home, Sophia chattered excitedly about all the questions students had asked and how many kids had told her they wanted to learn more about paleontology. Elena and Jonathan exchanged glances, both recognizing that they had just witnessed a pivotal moment in Sophia's development. That evening, they celebrated with Sophia's favorite dinner and a special dinosaur-themed cake that Jonathan had ordered from the bakery. As they sat around the dinner table, Elena reflected on how naturally she had become part of these family celebrations, how seamlessly she had integrated into their traditions and routines. After Sophia went to bed, still glowing with pride from her successful presentation, Jonathan asked Elena to join him on the back porch. "I have something I want to talk to you about," he said, and Elena could hear a nervous excitement in his voice. They settled into their usual spots on the porch swing, and Jonathan took Elena's hands in his. "Today, watching Sophia up there, seeing how confident and happy she's become since you came into our lives, it made me realize something important." Elena felt her heart start to beat faster, sensing the significance of this moment. "I've spent the last 3 years focused entirely on being the best father I could be to Sophia," Jonathan continued. "And that was exactly what I needed to do. But somewhere along the way I forgot that Sophia and I both deserve to have more than just each other. We deserve to have a complete family." Elena squeezed his hands, encouraging him to continue. "You didn't just pass some test when you sat down with us at that restaurant," Jonathan said, his voice growing stronger. "You became part of our family in a way I didn't even know was possible. You love Sophia for exactly who she is, and you've helped her become more confident and happy than she's been since her mother died." Elena felt tears starting to gather in her eyes, touched by the emotion in Jonathan's voice. "But more than that," he continued, "you've helped me remember what it feels like to be truly happy. Not just content or satisfied, but genuinely excited about the future and all the possibilities it holds." Jonathan let go of her hands and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box that made Elena's breath catch. "Elena Rodriguez," he said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful but simple diamond ring. "Will you marry me? Will you officially become part of our family?" Elena looked at the ring, then at Jonathan's hopeful face, then thought about Sophia sleeping upstairs, and felt overwhelming joy fill her entire being. "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, of course I'll marry you. I can't imagine my life without you and Sophia." Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger, and Elena admired how perfectly it fit, how right it looked on her hand. "There's just one thing," Jonathan said with a grin. "Sophia already knows about this. She helped me pick out the ring, and she's been asking me when I was going to make it official for weeks." Elena laughed, not surprised at all that Sophia had been involved in the proposal planning. Of course she did. That little girl doesn't miss anything. "She wants to be involved in planning the wedding too," Jonathan warned. "She has very specific ideas about what kind of flowers we should have and what kind of cake would be appropriate." "I wouldn't have it any other way," Elena said, leaning over to kiss him. "This is her family too, and she should have a say in how we celebrate it." As they sat on the porch swing, holding each other and planning their future, Elena marveled at the journey that had brought them to this moment. She had started as a stranger taking a chance on an unusual first date, and now she was engaged to the man she loved and about to become the mother to the most remarkable child she'd ever known. "So when should we tell Sophia the good news?" Elena asked. Jonathan grinned. "She's probably still awake, listening at the top of the stairs." "Sophia." They heard a little squeal of excitement from inside the house, followed by the sound of feet running down the stairs. Sophia burst through the back door in her pajamas, her face glowing with excitement. "Did you say yes? Are we going to be a real family now?" "We've always been a real family," Elena said, pulling Sophia into a three-way hug. "But now it's going to be official." Sophia examined Elena's ring with scientific interest. "It's perfect. I told Dad you'd like something simple and pretty instead of big and flashy." "You know me very well," Elena said, impressed once again by Sophia's insight. As they sat together on the porch swing, with Sophia curled up between them and stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, Elena felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. This was what happiness looked like, not grand gestures or perfect moments, but simple evenings with the people you loved most, planning a future filled with ordinary miracles and shared adventures. "So," Sophia said sleepily, "can we have dinosaur decorations at the wedding?" Elena and Jonathan looked at each other and burst out laughing. "Absolutely," Elena said. "We can have whatever decorations you want, sweetheart." "Good," Sophia said with satisfaction. "Because I already have lots of ideas." As they headed inside to put Sophia back to bed and begin planning their life together as an official family, Elena realized that the best love stories weren't always about two people finding each other. Sometimes they were about three people discovering that they belonged together, creating something beautiful and lasting out of patience, understanding, and the willingness to open their hearts to unexpected possibilities. The next few months passed in a blur of wedding planning, with Sophia taking her role as chief planning consultant very seriously. True to her nature, she had created detailed lists and charts outlining everything from flower arrangements to menu options, all organized with scientific precision. "Elena," Sophia announced one Saturday morning as they sat at the kitchen table surrounded by wedding magazines and sample invitations, "I think we should have the ceremony in the Natural History Museum. They rent out the dinosaur hall for special events." Elena looked up from the invitation samples she'd been reviewing, intrigued by the idea. "That's actually brilliant. It would be meaningful for all of us." Jonathan emerged from the kitchen with coffee for the adults and hot chocolate for Sophia. "The museum? I love that idea. It's where we had one of our best days together as a family. Plus," Sophia added practically, "if any kids get bored during the ceremony, they can look at the dinosaur exhibits." Elena laughed, marveling at how Sophia always thought about making things comfortable for everyone around her. "That's very considerate thinking." Over the past few months, Elena had officially moved into Jonathan's house, transforming the guest room into her home office and adding her personal touches throughout the space. But the most significant change had been in Sophia's life. Elena had begun the process of legally adopting her, something that filled all three of them with joy and anticipation. "Speaking of the wedding," Jonathan said, settling down with his coffee, "I got a call from the family court yesterday. Elena's adoption paperwork has been approved. The final hearing is scheduled for next Friday." Sophia looked up from her wedding planning charts with excitement. "Really? So Elena will officially be my mom before she's officially your wife?" "That's right," Elena said, feeling a familiar swell of emotion at the word mom. Even after months of preparation, the reality of becoming Sophia's legal parent still felt like a miracle. "Perfect," Sophia said with satisfaction. "That way you'll already be part of our family when you get married, instead of joining our family when you get married." Elena reached over and squeezed Sophia's hand. "I've been part of this family since the day I met you, sweetheart. The paperwork just makes it official." The adoption hearing the following Friday was a simple but deeply moving affair. Elena, Jonathan, and Sophia sat together in the family court as the judge reviewed their case, asked a few routine questions, and then made the declaration that changed everything. "By the power vested in me by the state," the judge said with a warm smile, "I hereby grant the petition for adoption. Elena Rodriguez, you are now the legal parent of Sophia Mitchell, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails." Sophia immediately launched herself into Elena's arms, and Elena felt tears of pure joy streaming down her face as she held her daughter, close. "Congratulations," the judge added. "It's clear that this is a family built on love and mutual respect. I wish you all the best." As they left the courthouse, Sophia walked between Elena and Jonathan, holding both their hands. "So now if someone asks about my family, I can say I have a mom and a dad again?" "That's exactly what you can say," Elena confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. "Good," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "I missed having a mom." That evening they celebrated with dinner at Sophia's favorite restaurant, the same place where Elena and Jonathan had had their first unusual date. As they sat in a booth, looking at the menu, Elena couldn't help but think about how much had changed since that first awkward evening. "You know what's funny?" Elena said to Jonathan. "That first night I thought you were completely crazy for bringing Sophia on a date. Now I realize it was the smartest thing you could have done." "Why's that?" Jonathan asked, though he was smiling like he already knew the answer. "Because if I had fallen for just you without knowing Sophia, I would have missed out on the most important relationship of my life," Elena said, looking at their daughter with obvious love. Sophia beamed with pride. "I told Dad you were the right one after that first dinner. You talked to me like I was a real person." "You are a real person," Elena said. "You're the most amazing person I know." As they drove home that night, officially a legal family for the first time, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. She'd thought she was looking for a romantic partner, but what she'd found was so much more: a calling, a purpose, a reason to be the best version of herself every single day. 3 weeks later, on a beautiful Saturday morning in the Dinosaur Hall of the Natural History Museum, Elena walked down an aisle lined with Sophia's carefully chosen flowers, simple white roses mixed with ferns, representing both modern beauty and prehistoric elegance. Sophia, resplendent in a purple dress she'd picked out herself, served as both maid of honor and flower girl, carrying a basket of rose petals that she scattered with scientific precision. Jonathan waited at the altar in front of a massive triceratops skeleton, looking handsome and nervous and completely happy. As Elena reached the altar and took Jonathan's hands, she looked out at their small gathering of family and friends, then at Sophia, who was beaming with pride and joy. "We are gathered here today," the officiant began, to celebrate the union of three people who have already proven that the strongest families are built on love, patience, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. Elena squeezed Jonathan's hands and winked at Sophia, feeling overwhelmed with gratitude for the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. When it came time for the exchange of vows, Elena and Jonathan had decided to include Sophia in the ceremony. "Sophia," Elena said, turning to face her daughter, "I promise to always listen to your questions, support your dreams, and remind you that being different is what makes you special. I promise to be the mother you deserve, patient, understanding, and endlessly proud of the amazing person you are." Sophia's eyes filled with happy tears. "Elena, I promise to keep teaching you about dinosaurs, to help you and Dad take care of each other, and to always remember that you chose to be my mom even when you didn't have to." There wasn't a dry eye in the museum as Elena and Sophia hugged, sealing their promise to each other. When Jonathan and Elena exchanged their traditional wedding vows, their words carried the weight of everything they'd learned about love and family over the past year. "I promise to love you both," Jonathan said, looking at Elena and then at Sophia, "for all the ways you've made our family complete." "I promise to treasure this family we've built together," Elena replied, "and to never take for granted the miracle of finding where I truly belong." As they kissed to seal their marriage, Sophia cheered loudly, and the sound echoed through the dinosaur hall like a celebration 65 million years in the making. Later, at their small reception in the museum's cafe, Elena watched Sophia explain dinosaur facts to their wedding guests with confidence and enthusiasm, and she realized that this little girl had taught her the most important lesson of all. That love isn't just about finding the right person, it's about becoming the right person for the family you're meant to create. "No regrets?" Jonathan asked, coming up behind Elena and wrapping his arms around her. Elena leaned back against her husband and watched their daughter hold court with a group of fascinated adults, and she smiled. "Not a single one," she said. "This is exactly the life I was meant to live." 6 months after their wedding, Elena woke up on a sunny Saturday morning to the sound of Sophia's excited voice carrying down the hallway. "Mom, Dad, the baby dinosaur hatched." Elena smiled and stretched, still getting used to being called Mom, but loving it more each time she heard it. She found her bathrobe and headed toward Sophia's room, where she discovered their daughter crouched over a large incubator she'd built for her latest science project. "Look," Sophia said, pointing to a small crack in one of the eggs they'd been carefully monitoring for weeks. "The chick is starting to break out." Elena knelt down next to Sophia, amazed as always by her daughter's scientific curiosity and dedication. "That's incredible, sweetheart. You've taken such good care of these eggs." Jonathan appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee, looking as charmed as Elena felt by their daughter's enthusiasm. "So we're officially a family with pets now?" he asked with a grin. "Educational pets," Sophia corrected seriously. "I'm studying childhood development in birds as a continuation of my research into prehistoric parenting behaviors." Elena accepted her coffee gratefully and settled in to watch the hatching process with Sophia. Over the past months, their Saturday mornings had become sacred family time, no work, no outside obligations, just the 3 of them enjoying each other's company and whatever project or adventure Sophia had planned. "Mom," Sophia said as they watched the tiny chick work its way out of the shell, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you ever miss your old life? Before you had a family?" Elena considered the question carefully, understanding that Sophia still sometimes worried about being a burden or complication in people's lives. "You know what I miss?" Elena said finally. "I miss thinking that I knew what happiness looked like." Sophia looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Before I met you and your dad, I thought happiness was about having a successful career and going on nice vacations and having an organized, predictable life. I thought I knew what I wanted." "But you still have a successful career," Sophia pointed out. "And we go on nice trips to museums and science centers." Elena laughed. "You're absolutely right. But what I discovered is that real happiness isn't about having the life you planned. It's about finding the life you were meant to live, even if it's completely different from what you expected." Sophia absorbed this with typical thoughtfulness. "So you're happier now than you were before?" "Infinitely happier," Elena said without hesitation. "Because now I have a daughter who teaches me something new every day, and a husband who shows me what real love looks like every single day." Jonathan sat down on the floor next to them, completing their little circle around the incubator. "You know what I realized yesterday?" he said. "What's that?" Elena asked. "I was in a meeting listening to someone talk about quarterly projections, and all I could think about was getting home to see what Sophia had discovered in her latest experiment and whether you'd had a good day at work." I realized that for the first time in years, my work is just my job. My real life is here with you too. Sophia looked between her parents with satisfaction. That's because we're a real family now. Not just people who live together, but people who take care of each other and want to be together. As if to punctuate her point, the tiny chick finally broke free from its shell, wet and exhausted but very much alive. Sophia clapped her hands together in delight. Perfect timing, she announced. New beginnings on a family Saturday. Elena watched their daughter carefully move the newborn chick to the warming area she'd prepared, marveling at how gentle and competent Sophia was with the tiny creature. Over the past year, Elena had watched Sophia grow from a shy, anxious child into a confident young person who approached the world with curiosity and courage. Speaking of new beginnings, Jonathan said, I have some news to share with both of you. Elena and Sophia looked at him expectantly. You know how I've been working so many late nights lately? Jonathan continued. Well, it's because I've been restructuring my business responsibilities. I'm promoting my assistant to handle most of the day-to-day operations so I can work from home 3 days a week. Really? Sophia asked, her face lighting up. You mean you'll be here when I get home from school? Most days, yes, Jonathan confirmed. I decided that being successful in business doesn't mean much if I'm missing out on being part of this family we've built. Elena felt tears of happiness prick her eyes. She knew how hard Jonathan worked and how much his career meant to him, but she also knew that family had always been his first priority. That's wonderful, she said, leaning over to kiss him. Sophia's going to love having you around more. We both will, Sophia added, then looked thoughtful. Dad, does this mean you could help me with my summer research project? I want to study how different bird species teach their babies to fly, and I'll need someone to help me observe and take notes. I can't think of anything I'd rather do, Jonathan said, and Elena could tell he meant it completely. As they spent the rest of the morning watching Sophia care for her new chick and plan her summer research, Elena reflected on how much their lives had changed since that first strange dinner at the restaurant. She'd thought she was going on a simple first date, but instead she'd walked into a story that was already in progress. A story about a devoted father and his remarkable daughter who were looking for someone to complete their family. The beautiful thing was that Elena hadn't just completed their family, they had completed hers as well. She'd found her purpose in loving and supporting Sophia, her partner in Jonathan, and her home in the life they'd built together. Mom, Sophia said as they cleaned up the breakfast dishes, can I tell you something I've been thinking about? Always, Elena replied. I used to worry that if Dad found someone to marry she might not want me around as much. Like maybe I'd have to go live with other relatives or something. Elena felt her heart clench at the thought of Sophia feeling so insecure. Oh sweetheart, that was never going to happen. Your dad would never let anyone come between him and you. I know that now, Sophia said. But the really amazing thing is that you didn't just accept me because you had to. You actually wanted me to be your daughter. You chose me. Elena knelt down to Sophia's level, looking into those serious green eyes that had first captured her heart at that restaurant table. Sophia, I need you to understand something very important. The day I met you was the luckiest day of my life. Not because I met your father, though that was wonderful too, but because I met this incredible little girl who taught me what unconditional love really means. Sophia threw her arms around Elena in one of her spontaneous hugs. I love you too, Mom. Thank you for making our family complete. As Elena hugged her daughter and felt Jonathan's arms wrap around both of them, she realized that this was what happily ever after really looked like. It wasn't a perfect ending tied up with a neat bow. It was a beautiful beginning that would continue to unfold every day for the rest of their lives. Later that evening, after Sophia had gone to bed and they'd settled the new chick safely in its temporary home, Elena and Jonathan sat on their back porch swing, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Do you ever think about that first night at the restaurant? Elena asked, curled up against Jonathan's side. All the time, he admitted. I think about how terrified I was that you'd leave, and how amazed I was when you started talking to Sophia about dinosaurs instead of making polite excuses. I think about how close I came to walking out, Elena said. If I hadn't seen how scared Sophia looked, I might have left and missed out on everything that mattered most. Jonathan squeezed her hand. But you didn't leave. You stayed and you saw what I was really hoping someone would see. That Sophia and I were a package deal, and that loving one of us meant loving both of us. It was the easiest choice I ever made, Elena said. Once I got to know Sophia, I couldn't imagine my life without her. And once I got to know you, I couldn't imagine my life without either of you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding each other and listening to the sounds of their neighborhood settling in for the night. Somewhere upstairs, Sophia was probably reading one more chapter of her latest dinosaur book before falling asleep, safe and loved and confident in her place in the world. "Elena," Jonathan said quietly, "thank you for taking a chance on us. Thank you for seeing past the unconventional circumstances and recognizing what we could be together. Thank you for being brave enough to show me who you really were from the very beginning," Elena replied. "Thank you for trusting me with the most precious thing in your life." As they headed inside to check on Sophia one more time before bed, Elena caught sight of their family photos lining the hallway. Pictures from museum visits and science fairs, from their wedding day and quiet Sunday mornings at home. Each photo told part of the story of how three people had found each other and chosen to build something beautiful together. In Sophia's room, they found their daughter fast asleep with a book about prehistoric marine reptiles open on her chest and her stuffed Parasaurolophus tucked safely under her arm. Elena gently moved the book to the nightstand and pulled the covers up to Sophia's chin, while Jonathan turned off the reading light. "Sweet dreams, sweetheart," Elena whispered, kissing Sophia's forehead. As they turned to leave, Sophia's sleepy voice stopped them. "Mom? Dad? I love our family." "We love our family too," Jonathan replied softly. "Sleep well, Sophia." As Elena and Jonathan headed to their own room, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. She'd started as a woman looking for love and had found something infinitely more valuable. A family where she truly belonged, a daughter who filled her heart with joy every day, and a husband who understood that the best love stories weren't just about two people finding each other. They were about people brave enough to open their hearts to unexpected possibilities, patient enough to build something lasting, and wise enough to recognize that the most beautiful families are often the ones that form in the most surprising ways. Outside their bedroom window, the stars shone down on a house filled with love, laughter, and the promise of countless tomorrows filled with new discoveries, shared adventures, and the simple joy of being exactly where they all belonged, together.